So as I shared before, the idea is to look at the pedagogical strategies that are being used in the class in this basically lesson and see how you can contextualize them to your own classroom setting. Okay, so I will start with a basic demo. I think you can see my screen now. This is not this pair of scissors. These are not a part of the demo. I'll just explain to you what all things I have. I have basically a cell on me. Then I have a stack of magnets, which I put together. This just gives me a good base. And I have a wire on me. And basically what I'm going to do is put this wire around this setup. So like this. And I'm going to leave it for some time. And what I want you to do is notice what happens to this setup. Oh, stop. Okay, let me just flick it again a little bit. I'll try doing it a couple of times. If it doesn't work, then I'll basically share a video of this happening. Okay. If any of you could see any change in the wire's position as I keep it, so I'm going to keep it here and I'm going to leave it. And you can see that there is some change in the wire's position. May I request one of you? So let me just cold call on someone. And what I want you to explain to me, what is it that you saw? May I request, so, alright, may I request Kalpana, could you share what were you able to see in this setup? I think it's working even now. So you can see that I've just kept a wire on top of a battery and
Yeah.
it's, so are you able to see anything? Change in the
Yeah.
wire? And what are you able to observe? Can you just share with us?
It is moving. It acts as a solenoid. So when the current is passed through that wire, we see that starts moving.
Okay, so you can see that the wire has started to move. Okay, so I can just take this setup off. Was I touching the wire? Was I providing any external force? Kalpana, are you on the call? Yeah. Was I touching the wire or providing any external force?
No, it was not applied by you. It was applied by the current.
Okay, and I think that's what we're going to basically engage with now. That you saw a setup where basically the wire started moving as soon as I put it on the battery, and there was no external force applied by me. Okay, what we're going to do now is let me share my screen and show you how we are using the worksheet. I hope everyone can see this. Over here, the first activity says stop and jog, and this is a similar setup to what we have seen right now. This is a different setup to what was happening, and you can see that over here also the wire starts moving as soon as it comes near the magnet. What you have to do is basically describe your observations in the space below. Now, the word to notice here is observations. Do not write inferences. Do not write things that explain to you why it is happening, but just basic observations, what you saw, what you heard, what you see basically was happening. And I'm going to share some guiding questions in the chat regarding these for you to write these observations and basically use those questions as prompts and fill up the space. We are going to take 2 minutes to write down our observations very quickly. I have put the guiding questions, sorry, I put the guiding questions in the chat. So using these, let's take 2 minutes and just fill out the stop and jot, which is regarding this observation. Okay, I can see some people are writing their observations, quite astute observations. Let's take one more minute. And we are going to come back. Please find a logical place to stop writing the sentence that you are writing. And we're going to come back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, please stop writing. Let's come back to the call. All right, so you saw basically a demo that involved a battery, a magnet, and a copper wire. You wrote down your observations, and what we're going to do now is think about what are the questions that we want to ask based upon this. What are some of the hypotheses that I have in mind about this? So let me share my screen and show you the work that we're doing now. You see the second question. It says, based on these observations, what questions do you want to better understand, or what is your hypothesis to explain this phenomenon? All right. Again, we have 2 minutes. You're going to write down either a question that you want to ask based upon this, which will help you clarify or reach a better clarity of the phenomenon, or you're going to propose a hypothesis and say, okay, you know what, this is what is happening, and this is why we saw whatever we were able to see. So again, let's take 2 minutes to jot down at least one question or at least a hypothesis, so that we can learn a little bit more about this phenomenon. Let's take 2 minutes to complete that.
Tushan, I have a question.
Yes, please.
When we're filling this worksheet, are we filling it as a science educator or as a student in a science class?
I would say as a science educator. Participate in this lesson with as much knowledge as you have about science. Um, the idea is to understand basically once when your student goes through an inquiry, what is it that they experience. So participate in it as a science educator. Smita, are you asking a question regarding this? It's okay if you're not a physics person, Zainab. That's not a prerequisite at all. Just based upon, I mean, whatever question comes to your mind, just please put that there. The idea is not that we know about this phenomenon. The idea is that to engage or like basically participate in the inquiry and to see how we can replicate this for our own students. So, any question that you feel fit, please ask. Yes, Smita, can you ask your question, please? Hi, Smita. Do you have a question regarding this? Okay, we're gonna take 30 more seconds and come back to the main call. Please find a logical place to stop writing your
No,
questions or hypothesis. I'm sorry?
no, whatever, when we saw the particular thing, what questions came to your mind alone, we have to write it down, right?
Yeah, so you've written down your observations based upon what you saw, right? Now, basically, to understand this phenomenon more, is there what question would you want to ask? Or if you know this, what hypothesis do you propose that this is why the things were behaving as they were? Okay, let's come back to the main call in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, everyone, I would request please stop writing and let's come back to the main call. Okay, so till now we've seen a phenomenon happen. We have written down our observations as to what we saw. We have written down our questions or hypotheses that will explain or help us learn a little bit more about this phenomenon. Now, what we are going to do is again we're going to go into the breakout rooms with our learning peers from our learning group and basically share with them what is it that our questions and hypotheses are. Before we do that, I'm going to share some norms for this small group sharing. Okay, so let me show my screen and all right, so for this small group share, the explicit expectations from everyone are share those questions and hypotheses with your peers in your learning group and see if any of those can be resolved. If any one of your peers can answer a question, please do let them do that. Please make sure that everyone in your group shares at least once. We have a different variability of science educators. Some of us are maybe, let's say, dedicated physics teachers. Some of us are not, have not taught physics so much. And so because there's a huge variability, please allow everyone to share at least once and then see if any of those questions or hypotheses can be resolved. Prioritize one question or hypothesis from your group to explore further. Out of all the things that are shared, there, I believe, would be at least one question or hypothesis that cannot be resolved. So prioritize that to explore further. Nominate one person from your group to share it with the whole class, and they'll do that in under 30 seconds. So we'll come back and we'll have a large group share. And basically what they will do is that under 30 seconds, they have to share that question or the hypothesis with the whole class. Okay, I'm going to put these expectations in the chat so that once you are in the room as well, you can see them. And I would request now Reina to divide us into the breakout rooms. Okay, I suppose we have everyone back in the main call. Okay, I hope you have chosen one person to share with the large group what your one key question or one key hypothesis is that you want to explore further. What we're going to do now is basically a large group share. And I believe that everyone has this in their worksheet as well. So let me just share my screen to show you the next part of the worksheet we're working on. And okay, so you see this table, and in this table is basically where we are going to fill for each of the groups what are the conclusions that they share. I'm going to be doing this on a slide as people share, and I'll be presenting that. So let's start with group 1. I think, wait, I can just call on a person and they can start. So Adwaita, could you tell us who is sharing from your group? Ask them to share their name, the group name that you had decided, and then what is the conclusion that you reached.
Yes, so I'll be sharing the question from our group, and the name of our group is Sciencifiers.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so that's the name of our group, and the question that we have is, will the spinning of the copper wire get affected if we increase or decrease the number of magnets?
Okay. All right. As I type this, can you please tag someone else and they can do the same? Share their team name and then basically what is the question? So this one.
Yes. So I would like to tag Bonita.
Thank you. Bonita, could you please, from your group, nominate one person?
Yeah. So I nominate Prerna, and the team name is Protons. Like to have a positive mindset.
Oh wow. Okay. So can I request one proton to share what your question is?
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah.
So we're Team Protons, and our question that we were thinking about was that if the wire was experiencing some force, then why was it just rotating? Why didn't it fall off or move any other way? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Can you please nominate someone else?
Yeah. I would like to nominate Purva Dikshit.
Purva, you can go ahead. Purva?
I think Purva isn't here. So can I ask Bhumika?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I was in a group with Chunky Kumar and Dava, and our group's name is the Explorers.
Okay.
Uh,
What would you like
so
to
yeah,
explore?
so we had a couple of questions. We also came up with a hypothesis. First of all, our question was something that we answered in the group as well. Is is the wire connected at the bottom of the battery? So which is a no, because it's a closed loop on top and it's not connected at the bottom, as you answered, Tushan. So because we were kind of confused whether current was flowing through the wire because it's not connected at the bottom, but since it's a loop, I think there is current
Flow
flowing
of
through
current,
it.
yes.
Yeah. That was one. And our hypothesis was that since it's a current carrying wire, there, because of electromagnetism, there will be a magnetic field produced around it. And we also have present a magnet with us at the bottom, which is causing another magnetic field. So we thought the interaction between the two magnetic fields is producing a force, which is making the wire move.
Thank you.
So that was our hypothesis. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Could you please tag another person? I think there's one more group left.
I'm actually not sure which group is.
Yeah, sure. I mean, actually, so any one person from the remaining group, whoever your spokesperson is for this, could you please unmute yourself and share?
Hi, Tushan. This is Saurabh.
Yeah,
I'd just like to go ahead. The name of our group is the Mighty Chondrias.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a subtle wordplay from one of our team members.
Go ahead, powerhouses. Yes.
All right. Yes. I think we did come up across for a hypothesis of sorts. So what we think is, like, based on the first image, we could see that there was a slightly different apparatus setup from the second image. So what we could figure out was the first one is having a coiled scenario. So it is very similar to a solenoid, which explains why electrical energy is being shown as the movement of the coil. And the second one, we also had, like, the force, the rationale behind that was a Lorentz force, where we are having a magnetism being produced due to an electrical force. That's because the charges are running across, right? So we have a potential which is created. So Lorentz force and solenoid were the two important terms. In terms of the question, we just want, I think this is very basic, and it probably highlights that based on the two different pictures, we could see that the magnet is placed midway across the cell, and in the first one it is placed right across the end of one polarity. Does that make any difference to the phenomena that is exhibited? So
okay, so sorry, so one was that your hypothesis that there was a force due to the electromagnetic induction and that caused the wire to move, and the other was about the placement of the magnet, right?
Yes.
So does changing that bring any change?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm just going to present this on the screen and give everyone about a minute to go through the conclusions that other people have shared. And then we're going to go ahead and see if we can address any of these through further experimentation and demos. So let me present this. All right, let's take a minute to go through this while I also prepare to answer some of these questions, and then we're going to address them together. Let's take 30 more seconds to read what others have written, think about it, and then we are going to come back. All right, let's come back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so what we're going to do now is look at what the questions or the final conclusions that each of the groups have reached and see if any of those can be resolved based on the next part of the lesson. All right, so Sciencey Facts have asked, will the spinning of copper wire get affected if we change the number of magnets? Okay, so the answer is that yes, it will get affected. It might move a little bit slowly or a little bit faster, depending upon the magnets that you have used or the kind of battery you're using. So if I use a battery which is basically a bit old, I can just set this up and show it. So this is an older battery from before, which has lesser charge remaining. And over here, if I put this setup, say here, you can see that it would, I hope it's visible. This is, yeah, it moves very slowly and then stops after some time. Something that was happening with the previous one as well, but since this is a completely drained out battery, there's not enough charge for it. I mean, it's moving a little bit, but it won't move as much as the previous one was moving because there is lesser charge in it. If I remove magnets, this is a bit tough to remove this stack of magnets, but let's say if I'm able to remove a couple of those, it would basically have the same effect as changing the battery had, which is basically we are reducing the magnetic field, and so therefore the amount of movement expected from the wire. Okay, now it's not moving at all because I have a dead battery and then very few magnets as well. So yeah, it would affect the movement of the wire if I have higher charge in my battery and more magnets and stronger magnets, it would move faster. Otherwise, it would move slower. All right. So that addresses the first group's concern. The next one, protons have asked, why did the wire only rotate when the force acted on it, okay, and not do anything else? All right. Yeah, that's a. Thank you, sir. Yes, it is directly proportional to the strength of the magnet or the charge which is in it. To answer the questions by protons, basically what is happening is that because the shape of this wire is like a loop, and so therefore it basically rotates around the cell that I've put. If I basically use a different kind of wire, so let me try and get different setup here. So here we have a magnet cell, and I'm basically have just a plain wire, and I'm going to put this wire on top, and I mean I can see that it's moving and not staying there, but I think you can see that it won't rotate. I mean, this is just basically attached to the cell, but it's not going to rotate. So yes, the shape of the wire does bring a good idea about a good predictor of what the movement is going to be like. Okay, next question we have is from explorers. The interaction between the two magnetic fields make the wire move. All right. So what explorers have shared is that when the current was being passed through this loop of copper wire, this also got magnetized, and because there was one magnet already and this also is now a magnet, and so basically now they are going to interact with each other, and basically that is what is going to produce a force. Okay, so if that is true, if this is a magnet, we know that for sure. We don't know that this is a magnet or not. So let's see if passing current through this is going to turn it into a magnet with the help of a different setup. All right. I hope you can see me right now. All right, so this is basically a plain nail that I have, and I've just basically bundled a single copper wire around it. And right now, if you see, I have two small iron nails, and I have this one big iron nail, and I bring them together. You can see that there's clearly no interaction between them. Okay. Now, as the hypothesis was shared before, by two of the groups, I believe that when a current passes through this wire, it is going to start behaving like a magnet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and pass current through this wire. All right, so I've connected the ends of this through a cell, and let's see if there is any change. All right, I hope everyone can see that before there was no interaction between the two nails, and now that I am passing a current through this, you can see that the behavior of this nail, the behavior of the copper wire basically has changed, and it is now behaving as if it were a magnet. Okay, so that is one insight into what might be happening and what changed into the wire when current passed through it, that it might behave like a magnet. Now that's only one observation. I'm going to show you one other video of basically the same thing. And after we've seen these two demos, one with the magnet, with the nail attracting the other pieces of nail, and then one with this video, and then we will basically try and infer a property of the copper wire that we've seen. So let me share my screen. Yeah, I can. Okay, I hope you can see my screen now. And here what you will see is basically, a setup where this person has drilled a hole in a glass and run a copper wire through it. And at the ends of these copper wires are basically an electrical connection. And so right now, what is happening in the setup is that this is a copper wire through which current is running right now. All right. Now this person put some iron filings around them, and he's going to just move or tap onto the sheet a little bit, and let's observe what happens to these iron filings once they are made to interact with the current carrying wire. So he's tapping them now, and you can see that there's a pattern emerging. All right. Have you seen this pattern somewhere before around something else? What do we know that iron filings arrange themselves around? Please don't answer in the chat box right now. What we are going to do is basically answering these questions by ourselves. All right. So if you open the printable now, you will see that at the end, there's a question. What did you observe about the current carrying conductor's behavior, which is this wire, and then the wire that we saw in the video, when the current was being passed through it in both the cases? So this is the question that we are going to answer. And I'm going to put some guiding questions that will help you basically reach the inference that we can gain from these two observations. So I'm going to put the guiding questions into the chat. All right, use these guiding questions to basically answer that one question that we have at the end of the page. From the behavior we saw of this wire, initially it was not attracting any of the small nails, and then when we passed the current, it did. Then we saw the other current carrying wire, that the iron filings start arranging themselves around the current carrying wire. Have you seen this kind of behavior before? What can you deduce about the current carrying conductor's behavior? Let's take 30 seconds more. Okay, I'm going to cold call on someone to share what is it that they can infer about um, about the conductor's behavior. Let me ask um, Prerna Ahuja. Could you share what your answer is?
Yes. So I have seen the similar pattern of iron filings around a bar magnet. So what I have made an inference is that when a when a current is passed through a conductor, it behaves like a magnet.
Okay, all right. Thank you for sharing that. So yeah, it is pretty evident that the behavior that we saw these wire exhibiting was basically similar to that of a magnet. When it is not connected to a source of current, it basically behaves normally like a piece of iron. But when it is connected to an electrical source, it starts behaving like a magnet. And basically, in our initial setup, where we had put the magnet on a piece of wire, that is what was happening. That because the wire also became a magnet, and we already had a magnet at the bottom of the battery, both of these started interacting with each other's magnetic field, and basically that is what caused the force, and that is what brought the change in the motion. So I think two of the groups were very bang on about the hypotheses, and that is exactly what was happening. And I hope that all of us understand now that a current carrying conductor behaves like a magnet, has a magnetic field around it, and will interact with other magnets. All right, so it's 6:17 right now. I know that the session was till 6:15. Is it okay if I take maybe like 7 minutes more? I think there's just one last bit that I need to do with everyone, and then we can go ahead. Thank you, Siddhi. Thank you, Saurabh. If anybody cannot continue, it's all right. I understand. We would have a recording of this session available. But if you can, I would highly request that you please stay for just 7 more minutes, and then we're going to finish this session. Let's take about 30 seconds so that everyone can have a decision, and then we can move forward. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you to read something, and then there are 2 questions waiting for each of you to answer. I'm going to share my screen to show you what it is that we're going to read. So in your printable, there are these last 2 paragraphs called Force on a Current Carrying Conductor and Fleming's Left Hand Rule. There was a question, if you remember, from one of the groups, which asked if the shape of the wire, if we change the shape of the wire, is there going to be a difference in how it moves? And hopefully this will help you answer that why shape of the wire is also really important for this interaction to happen. So in the next 5 minutes, you will basically read that small paragraph, and then I'm going to put a question in front of everyone, and just going to ask you to wait for some time, think about it, and then answer. And that is when we can finish this session. All right, so take about 2 minutes to read that paragraph, and then I'm going to put a question, ask someone to think about it and answer, and then we can basically end this class. Let's take 15 more seconds. All right. So you must have now read about Fleming's left-hand rule and how it helps us know and predict the movement of current carrying conductor around a magnet. All right. So I'm going to ask 2 questions now. I will give you about 30 seconds to think about them and then just basically cold call and ask someone to see how we understand Fleming's left hand rule. Okay, so your questions are these two. Take about a minute to read the questions, think about it, and then I would basically ask someone randomly to answer the questions. I hope you all are interested in turning your left hand to be able to understand which direction is the right one. All right. May I request Radhika to attempt the first question? Radhika, could you unmute yourself and just walk us through what your answer for this first question is?
I'm sorry, Tushan, but I need more time for this.
That's okay. That's okay. You can take more time. Were you able to read about the paragraph?
Yeah.
Okay, we can do this together. Tell me on the left hand, which finger is for magnetic field, force, and current?
Index finger,
Index finger is for
magnetic field, and
Correct.
the middle finger is for the direction of the current.
correct, and the thumb.
Thumb is for the force, basically.
Force. I
on
just
the-
remember it as FBI. I mean, just start from here, and this is FBI, and this is how I remember this. So, okay, let's do this. So, if the magnetic field runs from south to north, so based upon the compass that is given, magnetic field is FB, this one. So, it runs from south to north, that is like this. The current flows from west to east, FBI. This is the current. West to east would be this way. And now, if I put my left hand in this manner, where is the only place my thumb can go? Is it going right now towards you or towards the screen?
Towards me, I guess.
Towards yourself, right? So that is outside
Yeah.
the screen. Correct?
Yeah.
And that is the correct answer. It is outside the screen. All right. Let's take just 15 more seconds and I'm going to ask someone else to answer the last question. This is a different setup from the previous one, but we have to use the same Fleming's left hand. Okay, Sangeeta, may I request you to answer this? Hi, Sangeeta, can you hear me? Okay, let me ask someone else. Saurabh, do you want to give it a go?
Is it west?
There would be two directions, right? West, like to west or out or from west.
What I can see is my left, the middle finger is pointing towards the left hand side, because the index finger is into the screen.
The index finger is into the screen. Okay, yeah.
Downwards.
Your thumb is going downwards, yes.
And so the left hand side of how would I put it across? I just say west. If I just look at the
towards west. Yeah, you're right. It's going from east to west. So
Yes.
I think it's doing the same shape as I have right now with my
Yes,
hand.
yeah.
And so you can see that the current is going from east to west. That's right. Yeah, that's correct. Okay. So basically, what we have seen in today's lesson, we started from the interaction between magnet and current, and we saw that there was a force acting on it, and we were trying to understand where this force is coming from. And then, based upon further exploration, we inferred that every current carrying conductor will behave as a magnet whenever a current is passed through it. And if it is placed near another magnet, both of these fields will interact, and because the force produced, we will see a motion in the current carrying conductor. There is a particular way these things interact, and that is given by Fleming's left hand rule. And the big idea that is at the center of all of these, I am not sure if all of you have been able to engage with the asynchronous content, but this is one of the biggest pieces of the asynchronous content this week, the whole concept of having a big idea. And the big idea at the center of this is that objects can affect other objects at a distance. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And this brings us to the end of today's lesson. The most key important thing, if you remember the objective of this session, was to identify pedagogical strategies and to contextualize them. The lesson that I have taken right now was at an insanely fast pace because I'm working with science educators who already have a good understanding and a prerequisite knowledge about these things. When you work with your students, you'll have to break it down into many smaller parts and you have to bring in a lot of scaffolds. One of the things I want you to think about is that when you are engaging in the inquiry by yourself, let's say we started with it, some people had an idea about, okay, this is what electromagnetic induction is happening and this is why it's happening. Some people did not have a clear idea about, okay, this is what the phenomenon is going through. Similarly, in your class, you would have students with different, different level of understanding of the phenomenon. And basically what these small group share and large group share and stop and jot, just noting down your observation, thinking about a question that you want to ask. It could be any question. That question that we had ranged from like shape of the wire, size of the magnet to basically reaching that there is a Lorentz force and basically that's what's causing the movement. So that will happen in your class. The idea is that you let those things happen. When we were having the large group share, two of the groups had actually shared what the answer was, that it's basically behaving as a magnet. And so then basically I have two setups that can basically confirm that theory and establish that idea for everyone. So I would say that think about the pedagogical strategies that you saw in this lesson. See how they can be contextualized. I believe none of these would be replicable because the context is going to be very different for everyone. How those can be contextualized. To help you with this, there is one resource at the end of your printable or at the end of your worksheet, which is called a PCK analysis. In this, what I have done is I've taken 4 parameters: pedagogical strategies, key content ideas, the last 2 basically coming from what people have entered in the advanced task for week 1. A lot of people wanted to know about learner-learner interaction and learner-content interaction. So those are 2 things I've added as well. And across these, I've mapped what the element of the pedagogical strategy was, what the element of learner-learner interaction was, what are the purpose and utility of these, and then basically elements of scaffolding and contextualization. However, you'd see that I've left some places blank here. 1, 2, 3. I think there are about 6 blanks that people can fill. Now, this is an optional task, and this is basically deep diving a little bit into and sort of understanding the process of teaching this lesson. And what this would do is that once you go through this reflection, I would highly recommend do it with another peer from your learning group. What this would do is basically bring out these ideas and sort of give you a very clear idea of how it should manifest in your own classroom. It is optional. You don't have to do it and submit it to me. However, if you are able to contact your learning partner, or if you do it on your own as well, I would be more than happy to thought partner with you on this. So if you attempt this PCK analysis, please feel free to email this to me, and then we can take this forward.